Chapter 20: The Many Lies and Broken Promises. Obama campaigned longer than anyone else in American history for the office of the presidency. For over 2 years this half-white, half-black man ran for the presidency. During that impossibly long campaign he was running against everything that George W. Bush had done or was doing. Once he was anointed as president, however, he began to break every campaign promise he made to all of us about everything that Janie Bush had done. This is a quote by Jim Cowan, political researcher. You cannot look at politics without looking at the many lies and broken promises that are spouted to the public through the media in election manifestos and other pre-election so-called promises. Thomas Sowell, reporting for RealClearPolitics.com in May 2012, says that the fact that so many successful politicians are such shameless liars is not only a reflection on them but also a reflection on us. He reports that after the Constitution of the United States was amended to permit a federal income tax in 1916, the number of people reporting taxable incomes of $300,000 a year or more fell from over 1,000 to less than 300 by 1921. They were investing huge sums in tax-exempt securities, which was larger than the federal budget and nearly half as large as the national debt. Recently, in 2010, the British government raised taxes on the nation's top earners, and in turn they collected less revenue than before. Therefore the rich invest their money in countries where tax rates are lower, and he says that if you cannot rely on the rich to pick up the slack, what can you rely on? Lies, he says. Nothing is easier for a politician than promising government benefits that cannot be delivered, he says, and pensions such as Social Security are perfect for this role. The promises that are made offer money to be paid many years from now, and somebody else will be in power then, left with the job of figuring out what to do and say and do when the money runs out and the riots start. As I'm writing this section of this book, the media are reporting that President-elect Donald Trump has mysteriously admitted doing a U-turn in the potential prosecution of Hillary Clinton, one of the many pre-election promises that he made in front of millions of Americans and others around the world. Another broken promise made by a politician, but I wonder why. Is it because she is a member of the Council on Foreign Relations? Is it because she is part of the world's wealthy elite 1% of the world's population, which people refer to as the Illuminati? Because that is what was reported in February 2016 by Mark Cullen on the BuzzFlash website. He refers to an article written by Carmen Yerusso that states that collectively, she and her husband Bill have parlayed their political experience into at least $125 million in speaking fees alone. According to Bloomberg, Hillary was paid $12 million in the 16 months after leaving as Secretary of State, knowing she'd likely run for president. Goldman Sachs, Deutsche Bank, Morgan Stanley and other Wall Street corporations gladly paid her $2.90 million in speaking fees. The Washington Post reported that she had received $21.40 million from Wall Street for her White House campaign that failed. A Demos think tank article concluded that it takes nearly $8 million to join the wealthiest 1% in the United States. This means that the Clintons are far behind the dividing line with the other 99% of the United States population. Is it because she allegedly may have been involved in the mysterious deaths of 6 activists during the election campaign? Who knows? I cannot mention the lies spouted within politics without briefly mentioning Obama's name, because he is full of lies but is really just a handsomely paid actor puppet being controlled from above. He trained under Henry Kissinger and was therefore groomed to be a puppet liar. In 2007 he said that the Guantanamo torture chambers would close. Didn't happen. He said the US would come out of NAFTA. Didn't happen. There's simply not enough space in this book to go on, but you get the drift. It is possible that he entered politics with decent morals, hoping to make a real difference, but he soon found out that he was in a den of vipers, being controlled from the shadows. In April 2010, blogger Ian Dale wrote about the Labour Party's broken manifesto promises in the UK. In 2010 he went back to their 2005 manifesto to point out how meaningless they were and gave 27 examples of their broken promises. One page 12 stated that our 10-year-old pupils are the fastest improving in numeracy. In reality, Ofsted reported in 2008-09 that 2 million children in England were being taught in mediocre or failing schools and that 30% of 11-year-olds were failing to reach basic standards in English and maths. The Ofsted report in 2009-10 showed that 50% of schools ranked either satisfactory or inadequate, and that schools ranked inadequate increased from 4% in 2008-09 to 10% in 2010, and that only 9% of schools were ranked as outstanding. Page 12 stated that long-term youth unemployment has been virtually eradicated. In reality, the stats showed that long-term unemployment was 663,000, which was its highest since 1997, and that unemployment among 16 to 24-year-olds was 923,000. Page 15 stated that in our third term we will build new ladders of social mobility. In reality, since Labour got into power in 1997, social mobility had decreased and the gap between the rich and the poor had increased. Page 15 stated that we will maintain our inflation target at 2%. In reality, the rate rose to 3.5% in February 2010. Page 16 stated that we will not raise the basic or top rates of income tax. In reality, the Chancellor Alistair Darling increased the top rate of income tax to 50% in the April 2009 budget. Page 18 stated that the Labour government backs manufacturing. We will continue to do so. In reality, more than 1 million manufacturing jobs were lost between 1997 and 2010. In 1997, manufacturing accounted for 20% of the UK economy. By 2007 it had decreased to 12.4%. The scale of decline was almost 3 times greater than during the reign of Margaret Thatcher. Page 23 stated that we are tackling barriers to financing for small and growing businesses. In reality, tens of thousands of family-run firms were going to be hit in a £100 million tax grab when business rate relief was abolished. This came on top of an inflation-busting 5.2% increase in the rate, which cost companies another £1 billion. Page 33 stated that there would be harder A-level questions to challenge the most able. In reality, the man chosen to advise Gordon Brown on education reform, called Sir Peter Williams, found that over 20 to 30 years, I don't think there is any doubt whatsoever that A-level standards have fallen and that they have edged south over a long period of time, and that all university academics and a good proportion of sixth form teachers would agree. Page 38 stated that we are developing a nationwide week-long summer residential program for school students. In reality, it didn't happen. Page 38 stated that violent behavior, including the use of knives, will not be tolerated. In reality, the crime stats showed that more than half of knife crime offenders received sentences of less than 3 months, and that 5 out of 6 people caught with a knife avoided prison completely, and that fatal stabbings had hit record levels. Page 40 stated that our aim is for 50% of young people to go on to higher education by 2010. In reality, university participation among 17 to 30-year-olds increased by less than 1%. from 39.2% to 39.8% between 2000 and 2008. 12 page 44 stated that a new £340 million a year fund will take CSO numbers up to 24,000 to work alongside the equivalent of an additional 12,000 police officers freed up for front-line duties. In reality, between March and September 2009, 26 out of 43 police forces recorded a fall in police numbers, and at the end of April 2007, there were 16,000 CSOs in England and Wales. 13 page 44 stated that not all problems need a 999 response, so a single phone number staffed by police, local councils and other services will be available across the country. In reality, there were plans for a new 101 non-emergency number to be rolled out across the country in 2008, but funding by the Home Office was withdrawn. 14 page 48 stated that by 2007, every offender will be supervised after release. In reality, prisoners who spend less than a year in jail are not supervised upon release, and 50% of those prisoners go on to re-offend. 15 page 60/61 stated that we are halving the number of quangos. In reality, since Gordon Brown became Prime Minister, public spending on quangos increased by £10 billion from £37 billion to £46.50 billion, but the number of quangos had fallen from 827 to 766, but the number of employees had risen from 95,000 to 110,000. 16 page 61 stated that there would be comprehensive out-of-hours GP services. In reality, before 2004, GPs were responsible for their patients 24 hours a day. The new contract allowed them to opt out of 24-hour care by sacrificing £6,000 a year. 90% of GPs accepted. 17 page 63 stated that by 2009, all women would have a choice over where they have their baby. In reality, the National Childbirth Trust reported that more than 90% of pregnant women were not able to choose where they gave birth. 18 page 65 stated that we will ensure that fresh fruit and vegetables are part of every school meal. In reality, fruit and vegetables were not part of every school meal. 19 page 72 stated that companies will no longer be able to force people to retire before the age of 65 feet. In reality, Age Concern Help the Aged reported that more than 100,000 people were forced to retire against their will in the course of a year. 20 page 75 states that we will end child poverty, starting by halving it by 2010/11. In reality, the Department of Work and Pensions said that the 2010 target was unlikely to be fully met because of economic and demographic changes, and the number of kids in poverty increased by 400,000 since 2004. In 2007-08, the incomes of the poorest 20% of families decreased before the impact of the recession had hit. 21 page 80 stated that there would be a first-time buyers initiative to help over 15,000 first-time house buyers who could not own or part-own a home without extra help. In reality, up to the end of 2008/09, only 1,071 homes had been bought under this scheme. 22 page 80 stated that we will increase the annual supply of new social homes by 50% by 2008 feet. In reality, the Town and Country Planning Association report showed that England was facing its lowest levels of home building for 80 years, and that the housing shortfall would total 1 million by the end of 2010, resulting in record levels of overcrowding and longer than ever waiting lists, and that less than 100,000 homes were built in 2009, which was only 40% of the number needed to satisfy demand. In the 1960s and 70s around 300,000 homes were built each year. 23 page 84 stated that we will put the EU constitution to the British people in a referendum. In reality, Labour did not keep its promise. 24 page 88 stated that when UK forces are committed they will have the investment, strategy and training they need. In reality, Air Chief Marshal Sir Jock Stirrup, head of the armed forces, identified shortcomings of strategy in that defence chiefs didn't have enough time to source everything they wanted, and more time to prepare would have made a significant difference. Sir Kevin Tebbit condemned defence expenditure cuts, claiming Gordon Brown guillotined £1 billion from defence spending in December 2003, and Major General Graham Beans identified a major gap in attack helicopters, and that US equipment in contrast was magnificent. 25 page 89 stated that we remain committed to achieving a 20% reduction in carbon dioxide emissions on 1990 levels by 2010 feet. In reality, the Department of the Environment reported that CO2 emissions were projected to decrease by only 15.5% from 1990 levels. 26 page 95 stated that investment in school sports will ensure that by 2010 all children will receive 2 hours high-quality pay or sports per week. In reality, 14% of 5 to 16-year-old 900,000 pupils received less than the 2-hour target. 27 page 110 stated that we will legislate to place reasonable limits on the time bills spent in the second chamber, no longer than 60 sitting days for most bills. In reality, no such legislation was introduced. Unfortunately, most people have believed the line that government exists to take on the responsibility of looking after the people. The people have been sold an image of government as some kindly entity which somehow looks after everyone in the nation, no matter if they be young or old. This is the result of eons of propaganda which has been perpetrated by the royal political elite, who use pomp and circumstance, parades, flybys, flag-waving, national anthems, patriotism, royal weddings and the kissing of babies as a tool to fool people into thinking that they have some kind of group membership to a nation which has its head either a king, queen or president that represents their wishes and protects their families. It's a lie. This is a quote by Chris Everard, British researcher and film director. In August 2015, Yvette Cooper, an MP for Normanton, Castleford and Pontefract and chair of the Home Affairs Select Committee, writing for HuffPost Politics in the UK, highlighted 9 broken promises from the first 100 days of the Conservative government's election. In only 3 months since being elected, David Cameron had broken 9 pre-election promises after spending months before the election making future promises, in other words lying like Pinocchio. These include broken promises on child tax credits after being asked on BBC's Question Time's Leaders Q&A about cutting child tax credit, and he replied that no, I don't want to do that. It's not going to fall. In reality it was cut by £4.50 billion. Broken promise on child benefit, and he said we are not cutting child benefit. It is an absolutely crucial benefit and with me as Prime Minister, it stays. In reality the child benefit was cut because of a 4-year freeze, and according to the Office for Budget Responsibility between 2010-11 and 2020-21 the first child rate will have fallen by 14.4% relative to CPI inflation and by 24.1% relative to average earnings. Broken promise on rail electrification from the Conservative manifesto. Electrification of the railways is a key part of our investment programme, with work underway across the North, the Midlands and South Wales, and there are plans including East Anglia and the South West. In reality it was cancelled. Broken promise on affordable housing because their manifesto included more affordable homes. The chance to own your own home should be available to everyone who works hard. We will deliver more homes that people can afford. In reality, the OBR calculated that over the forecast period, around 14,000 fewer affordable homes will have been built. Broken promise on the decision over Heathrow. Cameron said that it had to be addressed, but we don't have to do it tomorrow, but we do need to make a decision in good time, and we will in the summer of next year, 2015. In reality, the decision was shelved until the end of the year and was finally decided upon in 2016. Broken promise on tax-free childcare after saying that parents have told the government that they are keen for tax-free childcare to be introduced as soon as possible, and the government is committed to introducing the scheme in the autumn of 2015. In reality, George Osborne in a budget delayed the policy until September 2017. Broken promises on volunteering because the party pledged to give every public servant 3 extra days off for volunteering, stating that a Conservative government would offer up to 15 million workers 3 days paid leave a year for volunteering. A new law would be passed requiring public sector employers and companies with more than 250 employees to give staff up to 3 days a year to do voluntary work. In reality, the idea was shelved. Broken promise on social care cap because the manifesto pledged that we will cap charges for residential social care from April 2016. In reality, it has been delayed until 2020. Broken promise on government transparency because the manifesto committed to continue to make government more transparent. In reality, the Conservatives launched a consultation to restrict the Freedom of Information (FOI)